Hey guys, Chris Fix here, and today I'm going to show you how to replace control arm bushings. You've seen videos where I've replaced the whole control arm, and sometimes that's a good option. But if the control arm's really expensive, a good alternative is replacing these cheap bushings and just sanding this up and spray painting it black. And on these control arms, there's no ball joint, so you're just going to be replacing them so that you can get new bushings. So learning how to press out the bushings, which is really easy by the way, is a good alternative. It's pretty simple to replace bushings. A bushing is a protective liner that provides cushion between moving metal parts. In this case, it's a rubber bushing, which provides more cushion, but you could also get a polyurethane bushing, which is a lot stiffer. So I'm going to teach you how to replace bushings really easily. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using a ball joint press. They also make bushing presses. Both presses will work, and remember, you could rent a ball joint press or a bushing press for free from your local auto parts store. Another good thing that you might want to have is some good penetrating fluid and a ratchet or a breaker bar just in case your bushings are really stuck in there. And that's basically it. So let's begin. So we have a control arm bushing right here, and the first step that I'm going to do is I'm going to take a metal wire brush or some sandpaper, whatever you have, and just get all that metal out of here that's kind of loose, because you don't want to press that into the control arm. I'm going to focus more on this side because we're going to be pressing the bushing that way. Okay, so with that cleaned up, let me show you how we're going to press this. So hopefully this gives you a good idea how the bushing's actually compressed in here. Now you can see on this side, the metal part around the bushing is actually flared out, and you can see that it actually flares out past the hole in the control arm. So we can't press on this side. What we're going to have to do is press on the other side, and you can see here the bushing doesn't flare out past the hole. So with our kit here, obviously we're going to have to take out this and take out this. This is the actual press part, so this threads in here. So we'll fit our control arm in here and then push the bushing out. We want to push the bushing on the metal here. So this big metal piece that's right here, we could push right on that. And then on this side, we don't want to touch the bushing. We want a cup that goes around the complete metal piece here. So we want a cup that touches the surface of the control arm but doesn't touch the bushing, so that it just surrounds it. And to make this easier on ourselves, you can see how this gets in the way of the control arm here. So what we're going to do, we'll just have that on the outside. It doesn't matter which direction this is in, as long as you're pressing it in the correct direction. So we're still going to be pressing this that way, even though we just flipped it around. So now we're going to look up at our kit here and look back at our press. We need to have a piece that presses up against here and fits in here. So looking here, I think this fits in. Good, that fits in right there, and it also fits right in on here. So we have this piece set up right here. Now on this side we're going to need a cup that fits around this whole end and could fit on here. So if we're looking at the cups here, you can see that this will fit around the whole bushing, and it doesn't touch the bushing. It only touches the control arm. So that works. But at the same time, if we try to slide this over here, it just goes right through. So we need to have an adapter on here. And you can see here are two adapters that'll make this work. That'll fit right on there. So I'll show you everything all set up. So you already saw we have this adapter that goes in here. We have this adapter that goes right on the stud here. Fits in. I said I was using this one, but I actually think it would be better to use this because this fits right around this point here and locks it in, so it's nice and sturdy. And this still fits around the whole bushing here. As you can see, this adapter only touches the control arm. It doesn't touch the metal surrounding the bushing at all, which is going to get pressed out. So here's our setup. Put this on here. We're going to be pushing the bushing that way, which is why we're not touching the bushing on this side and we're touching the bushing on this side. And get our adapter in here, and now we just tighten everything down. So that's the setup. It's very simple. That piece is pushing directly onto the bushing. It's pushing it through that way, and it's going to fall in this cup. So now we just need to crank away at this. To make it easier to get out, we're going to use some penetrating fluid. So right in there. Could even add some in here. And if you really can't get this out, then you could take this off and add it in there, but I don't think I'm going to have a problem getting this out. This piece at the end here is a 7/8, and we could just use a regular ratchet. Might need a longer breaker bar depending on how hard it is to get this out. Now's a really good time to have a workbench that holds the control arm down. I'm going to go use the floor. It's starting to get too hard to turn with this, so I'm going to use a breaker bar. The breaker bar is extra long, so it'll give me a lot of leverage. If you have an impact wrench, this job will be super easy. You just pop it on the end of there and zing, right off. Okay, and with that pop, we got the bushing popped out. So now we just have to loosen this by hand. And you can see that is pressed out. So this is what a bushing looks like. As you can imagine, these are relatively cheap, especially compared to a whole control arm. And this is where we pressed out the bushing, right in here. Now that we have this hole that the control arm bushing fits into, we want to clean this hole out. We could use brake clean or some penetrating fluid, whatever you want to use. I'm going to be using some brake clean just to get this cleaned. If the inside here isn't smooth, you could get some 600 grit sandpaper and just smooth it out, but this is really smooth and good. It's not rusty at all. Now that this is nice and clean, we have two options. One, we could press the bushing in, or two, we could clean this up even further with a wire wheel. So I real quickly popped the other bushing out. So now I'm going to show you me cleaning this up real quick, and then we'll put the new bushings in. I'm going to use a wire wheel on my grinder to clean this up. Make sure you use eye protection, ear protection, and some thick gloves for safety. Okay, now these are nice and cleaned up. Now you could do what you want with them. If you want to keep them like this and just put them in your truck, you could do that. If you want to spray paint them, you could do that too. Both of these bushings are the worn out bushings, but as an example, I cleaned up the right bushing, and we'll just pretend that it's a brand new bushing. I'm not going to paint my control arm just so I could show you guys how to press in a new bushing. After I film this, I'll paint everything, and when I get my new bushings, I'll press those in. Now let's see how to press in new bushings into the control arm. I have this other control arm for a reference. You can see which way they have to go in. This shoulder right here goes in on the outside just like that, getting pressed in there. The new bushings will be pressed in all the way so the metal shoulder touches the control arm. Now when you're pressing a bushing, you don't want to press the middle. You want to press on the outside. Just like if you're pressing a ball joint. You don't want to press on the stud in the ball joint. You want to press on the outside of the ball joint. So the outside here has this shoulder that's made of metal. You want to press on that outside, and you want to press it straight. And on the opposite side where it's going to get pushed in, you want something that cups it so that there's no pressure anywhere on this. You want the pressure on the control arm. So we're going to have to find something that fits on the outside here but doesn't touch the middle. The adapter that we use to press the old bushing out is too small and presses on the rubber bushing and the inner metal piece, which we don't want. If we press on the inner rubber or metal pieces, it'll force the rubber out of its case and damage the rubber. So we need something just a little bit wider. What I found that works for this bushing is this 30mm socket. You can see it fits right on the outside and doesn't touch anything. So we're going to use this 30mm socket to press this in. So it's going to look like this. And then on the other side we could use a small cup like this. It doesn't touch the bushing at all. The bushing doesn't really have to move in very far. It's just moving in that little amount, so this doesn't have to be deep. So we're going to have a press that's set up like this. And there we go. You can see this part of the press is going to be pushing it that way, and it's going to force it into this cup area, and this cup area is touching the control arm, but it's not touching the bushing or any part of the metal or rubber of the bushing. So you can see that shoulder right there needs to get pressed in that way. I'm going to tighten it as you watch. Good, and you can see it's seating right in there. And now we'll loosen this up. That looks really good. And there you go. That's the new bushing. That's the original bushing. So this is just to show you guys how easy it is to press your own bushings, so you don't have to buy a whole control arm. You could just take your old control arm out, put new bushings in. You could clean up your old control arms. I mean, look how nice these look. You saw the before. Both of these look nice and clean now. And it'll look and function like a new control arm. If this video was helpful, remember to give it a thumbs up. Also, if you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing. Up on the screen are going to be a couple of how-to videos. You can click on the screen, or you can find the links to those videos in the description below. Also in the description below are going to be the links to the Chris Fix Facebook and Twitter pages. Check it out.